How is everyone doing? People are still coming into the room, so we'll give it a few minutes, if you don't mind.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is my first Zoom meeting.
Oh, hey, welcome. It's pretty simple to operate and very clear. Our conference will be Zoom based as well, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Lita, there's no bill today?
No bill today?
Lita,
No, he had a doctor's appointment and then he had to go to Fort Worth and pick up the SUV. They had it in the shop for 2 days for a recall.
okay.
It'll be peaceful.
Well, we're still waiting for the chief will be on here shortly. We have the deputy chief. We have the treasurer. She's here as well. And she will be doing most of the talking today.
Come here, Bella. Bella, come here. Bella,
Hi,
get
Al.
over.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello. Hello, Kevin.
how are you?
Good.
I'm muting everyone as they come in so that we don't have a lot of echo. So
There we go.
remember that. You guys will have to remind me of that because I'll end up muting myself and I'll be talking and only my lips will be moving.
This is Janet Muckery from San Diego County, or San Diego Cherokee community.
Welcome, welcome. Let's, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get the Deputy Chief, Bryan Warner, to give us an opening prayer.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I'd say welcome to everyone. It's good to see everybody here. And if you would, right now, just bow with me in a word of prayer, please. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for this time of fellowship. Lord, I ask that you fill our vessels with your kindness, your wisdom, and your civility, Lord, as we go forward. We thank you for the measure of grace that you give each one of us and for the mercy that you show us, Lord. Now in these times where some may feel troubled, Lord, I pray that you reach down and help them feel the way that you need them to feel, Lord. Show them the path that you need them to walk on, Lord, and give us the courage and the strength to do so. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have, it's been a busy time. I'm sure it's been a busy time for everyone. But it's been definitely a busy time at the Cherokee Nation. And so I apologize for the short notice of this meeting, but you know, the chief and the council started this initiative a few weeks ago, and I reached out once to all of the organizations, large organizations, to with the application to get $2,000 for your organization for COVID relief. And so that's kind of where we are on that. And I would like to ask, I see, stand by. Deputy, would you mind making some remarks about like the state of the reopenings around the Cherokee Nation and what's going on around the Cherokee Nation?
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you. Well, hello again, everyone. And, I thank you guys for chiming in and meeting in with everyone. And it's good to, I hope you can see my face now. I've got it all figured out. The things that we've been doing here, the chief and myself and the administration and the council, we've had to take a very deliberate approach and be very calculated in how that we handle a lot of the things that we've done. And we've come through some of our phasing system, and I'm not 100% positive which we're still a little bit in phase 1, phase 2, but we never made it out of a certain area. And because of the rising numbers and the impact that it has on our hospital situation and hospital beds across not just the Cherokee Nation system, but what's across Oklahoma and what we're looking at. And as you well know, that Chief Hoskin has been on the forefront talking about people in masks and mandating some of these things that we've had to keep people safe. It's been, I tell you what, we have to call an alternate plan. It seems like every single day based on what news comes to us. But, always feel rest assured that we take the heart of the matter serious. We take our citizens and their health very serious, and it's particularly our elders that we know. Science has told us over time, this group, if you looked at the total hospitalizations right now in the state of, in certain states and different things, we know that the greatest percentage of that is those of 65 and older and others that have comorbidities that the COVID-19, the coronavirus comes in and attacks and seems to debilitate them. So we're going to continue to put our best foot forward. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions. We've got CARES Act dollars that are in place right now that we're trying to get out and to reach these areas and do the best we can. But I think right now our team has been just so excellent. The people those that are in the trenches, and when I say in the trenches, in my mind, I walk into the complex almost daily, and the amount of workers that are there cleaning and making sure that everybody has the appropriate things that they need to take the measures that they need. And one of the things we had quite a few questions about our environmental testing that we did, and that environmental testing has been very well received by admin and others, because it gives us a glimpse once we know that somebody is possibly that had been exposed or somewhere. We can go into those areas, we can clean those areas, and we come back and we can test back over those areas and to see how effective our cleaning is, what other measures that we need to take moving forward. I ask that, everyone on these calls, if you didn't get the information today that you may need, please reach out to us individually, to Mr. Stretch, Ms. Conover, anyone, because we can get you those answers that you need. I know there's a lot of questions about these CARES Act dollars and this COVID response funding that we have, and just know that the at-large community is always and always will be at the forefront of our thoughts, and we try to figure out that fine balance. I think over time, with anything, there has to be that balance, not just within an individual, but within the entire system as a whole, and that's what we strive for. And right now we're standing firm, with how we feel about our mask, how we feel about, if you get to come visit us, and I always say, at your own, everybody knows their self well and their health. If you walk into that tribal complex and any other place, there's a whole lot of measures being taken that we try to ensure the safety. I know one of the safest places that I feel personally every day is at my work. You know, and I want that to remain, and I think that's ultimately one of the most important things that we can do. But we have a daunting task because I don't know if a lot of folks know the pressures that it is to get these CARES Act dollars out to folks in a timely manner, and we have to have justifications and those things in place because the U.S. Treasury has put a deadline on these funds of December 30th of 2020 thus far. And as far as I know, that has not changed. So we have a lot of work to do and a lot of things, but we want to be here as a support system for what you guys are doing. And I tell you what, I can't look forward to getting back out there one of these days and being able to come visit with you, being able to hug the necks of those individuals that make it happen. And we say thank you, Wadon, for all that you're doing. Thank you, Kevin.
Go, Chief. Would you like to also tell us about how the food distribution at Cherokee Nation, while we're waiting for a few other people to join?
Oh, you bet, Kevin. Thank you. I thank you for reminding me of that. You know, in the beginning, I know many of you have heard that we went and we had to use tribal funds to go out and to get food, and I want to say that we've spent up to around $3 million in that food effort, getting that going. And what we did is we tackled it in an approach that we didn't limit the supply chain to other entities, whether it be nursing homes, certain schools and stuff. We went to 3 different groups and we started getting this food. And here lately, I know a lot of people have seen this in communities all across the United States where you have this movement from Go Fresh. In our area, it's Go Fresh, and it's produce, it's milk, it's different things that farmers supply every day that otherwise would be rendered useless and poured out and thrown away. And that is something that we've been able to come in, and every week we do about 4 to 5, we average probably about 4 to 5 sites a week throughout the 14 counties. We take that food and we load them up until the food is gone or until the people quit coming through. And in certain cases, we've been to some communities where we ran out of food. We came back in a couple of days later. As a matter of fact, we had a storm that came through here and it hit one of our heavily populated Cherokee communities where a lot of our fluent speakers live, a lot of our full-blood citizens live, which is in the Nycut Bellefonte area. And the power was out for a certain amount of time for 3 to 4 days. We were able to make sure that they were sustained by water. And we were also able to, I made a call one evening at 5 o'clock. The next day we were there at 9 o'clock in the morning, making sure that we delivered that food. And Chief and I both try to make it. For me, it's not just to get out and see the people, but for me, it's to give a little bit of relief to those individuals that are out there pushing that food out every single day, that are making that drive. And it's important for me to get out there and sweat and smile and be right there alongside of them. And when we do these things, it's warm here in Oklahoma, but we still stay protected. We still mask up. We still glove up. We do our things. But the food efforts, I can't say enough about those teams. And quite frankly, right now we don't see a whole lot of end in sight. I don't know how long the Chief of Staff has a lot of to do with these things, and the Secretary of State. And no matter how much, no matter if we're getting the food from Go Fresh or if we have to go back and go to the USDA and increase our food distribution efforts through USDA programs, or if we have to go out and tackle those dollars, we're going to continue to do that to make sure that we have individuals in our communities here within the 14 counties. And I would love to see the outreach. I know I was out in Western Oklahoma just yesterday, and I drove by the high school there, and they were doing the Go Fresh there. So I don't know if that's going on in other communities across the United States. I would hope that it would be. But if there's folks out there that aren't getting what they need, we'd like to know and try to find a solution for those efforts. But I can't say enough about the food distribution and the other efforts. And our communities are one of the main ties early on in this was our community building, that infrastructure that was set in place. All of those satellite community organizations that everybody has a little bit of contact with, they were an invaluable resource. We couldn't have done the early efforts, and we couldn't have got this thing smoothed out without the hard work of those people, the community, all of the relationships that they have. and that they've forged over the years. It just made our efforts so much easier. And I tell you, there's a couple of folks that are special. I don't know. One of these days, you folks may get to meet these, and you may already know them. But Mr. Ethan Green and Miss Ashley Fox, they kind of took over what Chief of Staff Todd Enlow was putting together, because Chief of Staff gets pulled in 1,000 different directions every day by myself, by Chief, and others. And those two stepped in and have taken this over, and they're just a fine example of what's happening all over the Cherokee Nation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Deputy. I will remind everyone that we're recording this because several people are attempting to log in and it's kicking them off. So Zoom's definitely not a perfect platform, but it's a really good platform. And we will Lindy Conover Thompson, who's on here, she will be reaching out after this meeting and sharing the recording to the groups as well, so that you can listen to it afterward. We've invited the 2 at-large tribal counselors as well, but they have yet to make it on here. And so I think what we'll do is we will move and let the treasurer speak. She's the one that is going to be providing us most of the information today. And so I am going to also make you the host, treasurer.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good deal. So I'm Tralynna Scott. For anyone I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, I'm the treasurer. And it's kind of been up to the Financial Resources Department to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations as we try to spend down this coronavirus relief fund money. I kind of jokingly say that when Treasury put out, the U.S. Department of Treasury put out the guidance on the allowable uses of this fund, I had never seen a document that was so vague yet so restrictive at the same time. They really put a lot of parameters and rules around this. And one of the things that they did come out and very clearly say is that for any money that we pass on to other entities, we have to do sub-recipient monitoring. And that is to ensure that when you guys spend the dollars, that they still meet all of those eligibility requirements. So basically, it's just like a pass-through. So it goes federal government to the Cherokee Nation. Cherokee Nation is passing it through to other entities. But those rules on how the money can be spent follows us. So those rules for us pass on to you guys. And then it's the Cherokee Nation's responsibility to do the sub-recipient monitoring to make sure that the entities we pass the money on to are spending the money in accordance with the statutory regulations as well. And we have reporting requirements actually back to the U.S. Treasury's Office of Inspector General. We have to submit reports and documents and stuff to them at designated intervals. So with that, I think that probably the best or easiest way to do this is to maybe walk through a PowerPoint that I have. Okay. Can everyone see this on their screen?
Good. Yes.
Okay. So this is a PowerPoint I made to help kind of guide this discussion. I'm not sure, Kevin, when you sent that application out, if you sent the program document along with it. That
Yes.
Okay. So this is from the program document directly, and it's the at-large Cherokee Community Organization, sub program. And what we've done is we've set up this sub program in order to help those Cherokee entities with their response to COVID-19. So, oops, it's not There you go. So like I just was explaining, the funding comes from the federal government. It actually came under what's specifically called the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And that was under Title V of the much larger CARES Act that was passed back in March. The Coronavirus Relief Fund is just one small section of a much larger act that was passed in March. But it is where the majority of the money that Cherokee Nation has received in federal COVID relief funding comes to us via this Coronavirus Relief Fund. And like I was saying, this is a limited use fund, so there are restrictions on how we can spend the money and requirements for different expenditures to be eligible for payment under the fund. And again, this is going over the fact that, believe me, it wasn't my decision to enforce all these sub-recipient monitoring requirements on there. I would love to be able to just pass the money on and say, we trust you, we know you'll use it well, and we know you'll put it to the best use. But unfortunately, I don't have that liberty. The Department of Treasury has imposed these regulations on us, and really the big deal about this, the main reason for this, is if we don't meet those requirements, then the Department of Treasury is actually going to require Cherokee Nation to repay the money. So it's really important that we follow all of these rules and regulations. So with that, let's move into what those are specifically. So in the CARES Act, under Title V for the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the statute actually lays out these three requirements, and it says that an expenditure can be paid for using the Coronavirus Relief Fund only if they meet all three of these requirements. And that is that, number one, they are necessary and due to COVID-19, that they were not accounted for on your most recently approved budget, and that the expense is incurred between March 1st and December 30th of 2020. So, if it was just left at that, then 10 people could read that and have 10 different interpretations. So what Treasury did so that was the statute, and then Treasury came in sort of behind them, and they provided this guidance, these guidance documents to give more explanation as to what those requirements mean, and basically just kind of give more color around those, so we know when we can use the fund and when we can't. So the rest of, or most of the rest of this presentation actually comes from that guidance that Treasury put out in, I guess it was April. They started putting it out, and they update it every once in a while with these frequently asked questions. So, but this is current as of today. So they said on necessary that just means that in the best judgment of the government officials, the expenditure is reasonably necessary to the function of the government. So basically on that, they're saying that, okay, Cherokee Nation, you guys know what you need and what's necessary to make the Cherokee Nation function. So we're going to leave that to the government officials. If they think it's necessary, then okay. They go on to say that due to just means that COVID-19 is the reason for the expenditure. They did say that can be either directly or indirectly, so that we're glad that they came in with the indirectly, because that's broadened it a great deal. So I have a couple of examples here on what's a direct expenditure and an indirect expenditure. So, a direct expenditure would be those things like the personal protective equipment, the masks and face shields and that kind of stuff. It could also be like cleaning supplies. So any of the disinfectants and hand sanitizers and those things, they're really purchases you're making to directly combat the virus. So that's, while there's a lot of stuff in that category, that's a bit more narrow than the indirect expenditures, which I think in the guidance they refer to it as the collateral effects. I kind of refer to it as the collateral damage that COVID-19 has caused. So, obviously one of the huge effects of COVID-19 outside of the actual physical health effects has been the effect on the economy, because everything was closed. We had the shelter in place orders for so many states. So they say that, the economic support, we can provide to people or to businesses for their business interruption, those will be considered due to COVID-19 because they are addressing an indirect effect of COVID-19. I guess, do you guys want me to go through the whole thing and then ask for questions, or you guys want to ask questions kind of as we go? I can do either. What do you think, Kevin?
I think continue to go through it, and maybe you'll answer their questions
Okay.
During your presentation.
So this is one, I will say that Tribes got the opportunity to have some consultation calls with Treasury prior to the distribution of these funds. And, one of the things that the Tribes and the states too, because the states got quite a bit of money, the state governments got quite a bit of money from this fund as well. And we were all pushing very hard for this money to be able to replace revenue. Obviously, our revenue projections that we had at the beginning of the year are not going to come to fruition because, our businesses were closed for multiple months, meaning that they didn't have any revenue coming in. So therefore, our dividend was reduced. So anyway, and with states and us as well, also tax revenues down because there were less sales, so less sales tax and everything else. So Treasury didn't buy it, unfortunately, and they said, yeah, no, we know you're hurting, but you can't use this money to replace revenue. But they did leave this little bitty sliver of light there where it says would not otherwise qualify under the statute. So what that means is we can look at an expense or a purchase or expenditure, and if that would meet the requirements, that three-pronged test, if it would meet that, we can still use the CRF to pay for it. However, we can't use the CRF to pay for an expense because we don't have the revenue for it. And the reason for this revenue shortfall is COVID-19. So you can't make that kind of circular argument around back to it. The next point 2 on the three-pronged test there is that it was not previously accounted for. So I don't know how many of your organizations have like formal budgets that you put out each year, but this would just be whether or not it was already included in your budget that you had set out. And again, that one looks quite restrictive. You think, well, geez, I can only use this for anything that was completely unbudgeted. But Treasury did carve out sort of an exception to that, which is on the next slide here. They said if, even if it was on your budget, but now you're using it in a substantially different way than what you intended when you put it on your budget, then that will still be considered not accounted for. So I have an example on here. It's not a real example. It's just one I made up. But say that, speaking from the Cherokee Nation's perspective, if our education department had budgeted for a 3D printer that they wanted to use in the classroom for science or math or whatever, and they bought that printer, but when it arrived, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and our health department was saying we really need a 3D printer so that we can make those face shields for our doctors. So, the printer arrives and we say, hey, education, we know that you wanted this and you needed it and you budgeted for it, but because of the state of emergency, we're actually going to take that and go give it to health instead. So now that 3D printer is being used for a substantially different purpose than what was contemplated when it was put on the budget. And Treasury has said that that will be considered not accounted for. And lastly, the last prong of the test here is that the expense or cost is incurred between March 1st and December 30th. So they've come in and they've defined the word incurred to mean expended, which in turn means that it has to actually be spent by December 30th. So that means the check has been written, it's been put in the mail, and the money is out the door as of December 30th. And that, again, that's so important because any money we don't spend, we have to return to the U.S. Department of Treasury. And nobody wants to do that. We want to use this money for the best use to the Cherokee people. We want to put this money to work for the Cherokee people. So that means getting it out and into the communities and not sending it back to Treasury. So because the Cherokee Nation has the reporting requirements back to the Department of Treasury's Inspector General, we're asking that all of the CCO organizations have the money spent and actually reported back to us by December 15th, which will give the Cherokee Nation a couple of weeks to compile our report that we have to send on to the Inspector General on the 30th. And like I was saying, this money is subject to audit. It's by the Inspector General, actually. In the CARES Act itself, it specifically states that the the Department of Treasury's Inspector General has the oversight authority for this money. So they will be, well, obviously they've already instituted the reporting requirements that we have to follow, but they will also be doing audits after December 30th, I assume, is when they'll start. And I absolutely 100% expect the Inspector General to show up on the doorstep to audit the Cherokee Nation. So to that end, we are doing everything possible. Financial Resources is working really hard to ensure that we are spending the money in accordance with the guidance. We're following all the rules, all the regulations, and we're getting all the documentation that we need gathered up so that when the Inspector General shows up, we have it all just wrapped up real pretty with a bow on it to hand over to them to go through, and then we'll pass any audit with flying colors. And this last one here, this isn't necessarily specific for this. It's really all federal dollars, but we can't, there's no double dipping, which I don't think is really going to be an issue for any of your organizations. But for organizations that get other federal funding, we just have to make sure that we're not trying to count the same expense on two different sources of federal funding. So taking all of that, and I know that I went through it pretty quick, but just to kind of lay out the process here a little more clearly, is that I know you guys have received the applications, and I believe some of you have even returned them for us to go through. So that will be step one, is filling out the application and sending it back to Kevin. Kevin will review it, I will review it. If basically what we're looking for is in your project description that what you guys intend to do is actually going to match up with the requirements. It's going to be allowable under those requirements. So once that process is done, if you're approved, we will notify you, and you'll be sent, along with the notification, sent a short sub-recipient agreement. And I will say that first glance, it might look a little bit scary, but it's really not that hard. It's 3 pages, and we have set up, we've assembled a team within our grants department that will be dedicated to helping you guys complete this. In fact, any portion of the form that we can complete for you, we will have already filled out when we send it to you. And there's an email address, and I'm sure we'll put a phone number on there too, that we will help you guys and walk you through that. And it will try to eliminate any questions on the front end, and hopefully make it as painless as possible. But this is a requirement of the U.S. Treasury. This isn't something that we just want to do. Believe me, we would prefer not to, but it is something that we are required to do because we are passing those federal funds on to you guys for use. And then finally, back to that December 15th date, either somewhere, on or before December 15th, we'll just need you guys to basically send in your receipts, or send in, some type of documentation as to how the money was spent. And, I say report here, it's probably going to really just be more of like a cover sheet that you can fill out really quickly. And again, our grants department, our COVID team within the grants department will be there to help you through that by all means. And they'll be the ones sending those out a little later on. But that's actually it for the presentation. I can answer any questions, or I can attempt to answer any questions if anybody has any.
I would like to, if you don't mind, I will start out. I'm going to add people that have joined while we've been talking. But I would like to start out the questions by asking you a few things that I know other organizations have asked, and that is, so we're allowed to request monies for lost fundraising opportunities. Is that correct?
So how we'll need to phrase that is really based on what you guys were going to use the fundraising money to do. So instead of just saying, this is the revenue that we weren't able to raise because of the fundraising. Well, actually, let me take that back. I think that we could do that actually under the business interruption exception to that. So because of the business interruption, if you guys weren't able to hold your fundraisers, I think that is allowable actually. I amended my previous statement.
Okay. So if they put on their statement that we were going to have these fundraisers and we were expecting to raise X amount of dollars, that would be something that would be allowable.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that last part.
Oh, so if they made a little spreadsheet that said we were going to have these fundraisers during the year and we were expecting to raise this amount of money, then they could submit that.
Yeah, I do think that it probably needs to include what the money that you were raising is going to be used for. So the expenses that you planned putting the fundraisers on there, yes, and the ones that you had to cancel due to COVID-19, and then also a list of what you intended to spend that money that you were raising on.
So we could say we were using that money for scholarships, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So if it's like a 2,000, if it's a $2,000 scholarship, and you had intended to raise, do fundraisers to raise that money. List the fundraiser and, list the date that it was going to be. And, it was canceled because of COVID-19. And then the scholarship, $2,000. And that will be what we use to approve the application.
Okay. But if you were raising funds and you sent, say, $500 every year to, I'll say an in reservation, an in district, Cherokee Nation group, that wouldn't be allowed, correct?
No, because that would be another pass through, right?
Right.
And then you guys would be, have all these same kind of burdensome responsibilities that the Cherokee Nation has to do all the sub-recipient monitoring and all that. So we won't be able to, for you guys to pass through the funds again. It'll need to come from us to you guys to then, pay an expense or, cover a cost that you guys have incurred because of COVID.
Okay.
I have a quick question in regards to that.
Okay.
Let's say if it was for a scholarship fundraiser money that was lost due to COVID, we usually don't give out our scholarships during the next 3 months after our fundraiser. Like, we're about to award educational scholarships because it's already on the books. It's already coming out of a set aside funds that this isn't involved in. But some of it was from fundraising last year. Would it need to be off our books this year though, if it were?
I would not suggest that you guys change any of your policies, to accommodate the use of this. But, I don't think that we have to show the date that a scholarship is given, right? I think it can just be that, just a statement that each year we do fundraising efforts to raise X number of dollars, and then X number of dollars is used for scholarships. And so really what the request will be is for us to use the coronavirus relief fund to provide you with the money to make the scholarship payments. But I don't think that well, that's not true. It has to be used by the 6th grade. I would say maybe this year, okay, again, I changed it. This is how we have to do. We got to walk through everything and think through everything, right? And I'll be the first to admit that I change my mind sometimes. So I do think that this year that, we would provide you that money for the scholarship, and then you use that money on your books, the coronavirus relief money, to pay the scholarship this year. Yes.
Very good.
This is Janet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is Janet Muckery from San Diego community. I'm just wondering, because we won't have the chief coming out, that's our biggest fundraiser. And that's what we use to pay when we do the donation to Jeremiah 29 Foundation. We use it for our meeting spaces, which are $283 each time. And we use it for the food and the supplies, etc. Since we're pretty sure the chief's not going to be coming out in October, which was our usual date, would I then go ahead and put down the money that we make from, because that's when we do our t-shirt sales, our license plate sales, get most of our memberships. And I have all of that separated, but we bought the stuff last year. And of course, I'm not going to be buying more t-shirts this year because we won't be able to have it. So we really won't have receipts. How does that work? Because it's lost revenue, but my receipts that I would have, and I have receipts for everything, but they will say the date, which was, of course, last year. So I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I'm just trying to walk through this in my head. And I think a lot of other people probably have the same issue because we pretty much all sell the most t-shirts and everything. The Chief's wonderful for us. Big draw. So how are we going to do that?
Yeah. That's a tough one. You're correct in that, you wouldn't be able to use the expense of the t-shirts that you purchased really anywhere prior to March 1st.
Right.
As your basis for the funding.
But the fact is, without him coming out in October, we will then be hard pressed for next year, and because we won't have had this October's funds coming in. So that's my dilemma.
I would like to address one specific thing she talked about, and that is you wouldn't be able to state that you're donating money to the Jeremiah 29 Foundation because that wouldn't be allowed.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That's the pass-through issue. That is a tough one because you would have to when we send you guys the money.
You're saying receipts. You're saying receipts, and I get the whole receipt thing. And I'm sure that almost every other at-large community is going to be in the same boat because when the chief comes, we all really promote and sell as much as we can, and it carries us through. Well, we won't have that carry through this year, which is COVID. So help.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What other type of, not just limiting it to what you use that specific fundraiser for, but what other type of expenses does your organization incur throughout the year?
We have the meeting rooms, which they're $283 each time we use the meeting room at the Veterans Museum. We have we provide the main course, the main dish, which is the fried chicken, all the supplies. We do all the printing, everything for our members, and then all the craft supplies and all of that when we do the craft projects. So it would hurt.
So, but are you incurring those costs this year? Like, did you schedule out the rooms and you had to pay for them?
Yes.
Even if you weren't able to?
Well, we did sign the contracts already. We did have one meeting already on the 29th of February, so we just missed that one. So we were able to do that one, and but the other ones we did sign contracts for. Now, we may be able to wiggle out of those, but not knowing if we will be able to still meet in December or not, maybe November. We have meetings coming up still that we still have left, just in case we can have some type of a meeting, even if we have to cut it down to a fourth, which would only be 25 members.
Well, I would say that for any of the meetings that you, like the cost for the meeting rooms that you had to pay, even though you couldn't have the meeting, that would be something that we could use this fund for.
Okay.
And any like food that you had purchased or deposits you put down on catering, maybe then that the meeting got canceled, but you lost your deposit, that would be
that's
eligible.
not. Right. We don't have that because we pretty much just pick it up the day of.
Yeah. So the problem is that the way Treasury is going to view it is that you guys had a fundraiser last year to pay for most of these expenses that you were going to incur this year. And if you don't incur those expenses this year, then technically you should still have that money from the fundraiser last year that you could then just maybe kind of almost like skip a year.
Right. And we will have a portion of it left, but we did have meetings after the October meeting So we had the expense of the October, the expense of the December, and then February. So we did use some of the money going forward into those months before the COVID hit. So we will have some. It's just getting to that next October. It's going to be tight, and I think that's going to be the case for a lot of the at-large communities.
It will, and that goes back to this, how vague yet restrictive they've been. They really put this tight timeline around it.
Right.
And if you're not going to incur the expense during this year.
Right. I mean, are you saying that we should go ahead and buy the T-shirts? I mean, to me, that's not a COVID thing. You know, like, I hate for us to put the money out for that to get reimbursed for that when there's people that probably really need it for other things. I mean, I don't want to be selfish.
Well, I mean, who's to say Chief won't be able to come out in December? If you're thinking you might still be able to have, you know, December meetings. So, you know, if you want.
Yeah,
I think that would be, you know, something you might want to consider doing.
And then just having it just in case.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe you change up the timing. They're all expenses that you're going to incur, so you're not being dishonest in that manner. You know that you're going to have to buy those at some point. So you know, it's not a matter of trying to cheat the system or get around it or something. You're just changing the timing of the purchase, and I think that would be okay.
Also, the sanitization supplies, PPE are allowable expenses as well. So if you have
we can do that
or plan to purchase those, that'd be something that would be covered.
Yeah, or food. Okay, if you guys were going to do like kind of a small scale food distribution program, the food that
I was going to ask about
that would be a covered expense.
Also, materials for making COVID-related products. So if you decided that you wanted to make, your organization wanted to make masks to hand out, you could spend this money on the supplies for mask making. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we're not good at mask making, can we just buy the masks, like the disposables or something? Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and the cleaning supplies. So if you are trying to have meetings, you know, and you'll need to disinfect the area before and after. The cleaning supplies you have to purchase for that would be allowable. To the extent that maybe, okay, so here's an example. If you say you hold your meetings in an area that has like the divided rooms, right? Kind of like a hotel or something, maybe an event space, and you can, it's $100 for the 20 by 40 room, but they can slide this divider back, and it's $200 for the 40 by 80 room. Well, if you're having to move up to get that bigger room so people can socially distance at your meeting and everyone can stay 6 feet apart, that added cost for the bigger room would be an allowable expense as well. So those kind of things. So like the extra steps that you're having to take because of this, all of that would qualify.
Okay. So Linda Flores is asking if we can use this COVID money to assist community members affected by COVID-19.
You mean like a direct, just like a emergency assistance type payment?
I'm not sure. Linda?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We were, Emily and I are from San Antonio. We're wondering if we can help people who have maybe lost jobs, who are homebound, or elders, who need food delivered, we can have some deliveries made, or we can buy cleaning supplies, that kind of assistance.
Yes. Yep. What we'll need to do, and I can share it with you actually, is just it's literally a check yes or no. It's a COVID, we call it the COVID impact form. And it's kind of like it's a self-certification from the person saying, I've been negatively impacted by COVID-19 and I'm requesting assistance. And then it's a check yes, check no. And so, you have them check yes and sign that paper, and then you would put that with your report back to us. We just need an affirmative statement from the individual receiving those goods or services that they were negatively impacted by COVID.
Okay, so we could send, because our membership is very scattered.
Mm-hmm.
More people are on our email list members than come to our meetings normally. So we could send out an email to find out, are you affected? Do you need help?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be a good idea.
Yes.
And letting them know what kinds of things we can do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the ones that say, yes, I need help, we can send them that form, and then we can be in contact with them more personally, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank
Next,
you.
Melissa McKee. Melissa, are you there?
I think you muted everyone.
Yes,
Oh, I'm
Kevin.
sorry. There.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Okay. So my question is to minimize contact with elders that may need food assistance. Can we buy grocery store gift certificates to mail to them or deliver to their front door so that way they can order food online or just use it at the store? Is that allowed?
Grocery store gift certificates is what she's asking.
Grocery store.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. Yes, I think that would work. And again, it would go back to, we would just need that self-certification from whomever you're sending the gift certificate to that said, where they're affirmatively saying, I've been impacted by COVID-19. And as long as you have that documentation in the file, then yes, I believe we can send the gift card, a grocery store gift card or whatever to them.
So the application is very simple.
Yes.
But you need to make sure that you have your backup documentation, whether it be, showing what you're going to lose fundraising wise, or receipts, or your intention, so that you have a budget narrative that kind of matches what you're requesting. Or even bids or quotes on products that you're going to get.
Here, I'll share my screen one more time to show you guys. Oh, you disabled me. I can't share it.
Sorry. Hang on one second and I will. There you go.
This is, can you guys see that?
Treasurer, this is Chief. I need to jump in for just one second.
Hi, Chief. Absolutely.
Okay, and I apologize to everyone. Somehow the time and link escaped my attention, but so I just have a moment to get on because I had other things, unfortunately, calendared over this. So I just want to tell everybody how much I appreciate what you're doing in the at-large communities. We wanted an opportunity to provide some resources to the at-large organizations within the parameters that we have. The leadership of your at-large counselors is important, and they always encourage us to find ways to connect with the at-large community, whether it's communicating or resources. You're in the best hands possible with those on this call, and I don't want to burden us with any questions, but if there had been any questions for me before we got on this call, I could address them now as quickly as I could. but I just wanted to give that opportunity. And I know we need to have more of these opportunities. So I appreciate everyone's time. So Kevin, is there anything that I need to address, or Treasurer?
Not specific to this meeting, but if you would like to talk about what's going on with the sovereignty issue, I know that's on everyone's mind. Would you like to update us on that?
Sure. Let me give it to you briefly. So there has been, I think, a great deal of misunderstanding and some frankly misinformation on this subject. The Cherokee Nation is not giving back McGirt. We're not giving back sovereignty. We have a framework of principles on which we could discuss federal legislation, and I'll get down to brass tacks here. If you know your history, and I know community leaders know their history, we know that every gain that we achieve in the Supreme Court, whether it's the Cherokee cases of the 19th century or other cases, we know that Congress has broad authority to respond. My view was, is, and will always be that we have to be at the table and engaged. I do not have the luxury as Chief of the Cherokee Nation to cover my ears and close my eyes and hope for the best. And so that's the reason that I've been engaged on the subject of what Congress does with McGirt. I'd love to tell you Congress is going to do nothing with McGirt. I'd love to tell you that simply our hope that they do nothing is enough, but hope is not enough when it comes to the authority of the Congress of the United States. You have to have leadership that's engaged, and that's what I've tried to do. A couple of other things. There's been some discussion that somehow this undermines VAWA. The opposite is true. We address VAWA in the framework, and I think there's an opportunity to permanently authorize VAWA. You know, we have to fight for those extensions on Indian country, for the Violence Against Women Act every few years, and I think that an opportunity to lock that in is important. But it's a fluid situation. It's one that I've fully engaged in, but any thought that we are giving back our sovereignty, turning back McGirt, is not accurate. And I'll have more on that in the future, but I wanted you to hear directly from me that is my sense of it. And I don't pretend to corner the market on all knowledge of sovereignty and law, but I have been at it a while, and I take it very serious. I take claims that I am indifferent to our sovereignty or hostile to our sovereignty very serious, because it's an affront to everything I've stood for as a public servant to the Cherokee people. My role as chief is to not dodge these very serious, weighty issues, but to take them head on, and that's what I've tried to do. Having claims that I'm turning back our sovereignty, that's just part of the process. We are a free society. People are free to make those comments, but I'm telling you directly from me, it's not so. So that's my comments on that. Again, I do think we need robust discussion about it, and I'll continue to be available.
Well, Chief, I think that's all the questions that we had for him up front. Does anyone have any quick question? Okay, well, Chief. Let's see. There's a question about they've been calling members of their about delivering food. The calling expenses will be covered.
The expense of calling the people, or the expense of delivering the food?
I think it was the calling part. David, you're on here. You want to clarify your question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. No, we've been regularly calling our membership and to see if any way we can help them. And some of them have asked us for food and items like that. And we have made special efforts to get that and deliver it to them. So it's the expense for the food and our own expenses for delivery. Sometimes they're like an hour away.
Yeah, absolutely. The expense for the food and the gas or whatever the expense for delivery is would be allowable. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Also, Patsy would like us to try to define impacted. to some degree, everyone is impacted. Do we mean that someone has the virus?
No. We deliberately left that very broad because there are so many different ways people can be impacted. It can be that they've had the virus, or someone in their family's had the virus, or that they have, they or someone, you know, in their family has either lost their job or had like a reduction of hours, so significantly lowered income, you know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? This virus is affecting people in so many ways that I probably can't even think of all of the ways that it has impacted them. So we actually deliberately left that vague for that reason, because we don't want to exclude anyone who may have been negatively impacted by COVID, but because they don't fit into the little boxes that we put on the form, then they can't get help. And that's not what we want to do. We want to help as many people with these funds as possible. So, so we deliberately left it broad like that. Excellent.
Also, there's a question about, can we just have a blanket acceptance of COVID necessities so that they don't have to write a justification for every single line item? It's just an overall summary, right? And a narrative.
Yeah. So those things that, like, you know, are everyone needs: hand sanitizers, cleaning supplies, masks, really food to some extent, I believe. Like if, you know, if you did a food giveaway kind of thing, like how we're doing at the Cherokee Nation, we'll set up in kind of one location and people can come and pick up the food, you know, those kind of things. You don't need you don't need one of those forms from every person, because they are so very obviously necessary for COVID-19, and there's stuff that every single person needs. So no, you don't have to have one for every person in those situations.
Okay, great. I think you were, before the chief came on, you were sharing your screen and you started to talk about a form.
Oh, I was just showing, can you guys see that now?
Not yet.
I don't know what's going on here.
I think you're still the host.
Okay, how about now? Do you guys see the COVID-19 impact form?
Yes.
So this was just to show how simple the form is. They put their name and check yes and sign and date it. And this would be most necessary for really, like if we're going to be giving a gift card or monetary stuff, just like a check, a gift card, you know, something like that. That's when we really need this form. And I'm glad the previous person asked that question. For masks and hand sanitizer and those COVID basics, I guess you can call them, the COVID necessities, we don't have to have one of these for every single person. Okay. I know it's a bit vague, but you know, hopefully you guys are kind of getting what I'm saying there.
You would be so kind as to share that form with me. We will make sure that that we get that out to the communities because we haven't previously sent that. So are there any other questions for the treasurer before we get the chief of staff to talk to us a little bit? Anyone? Thank you so much.
And let's see, I'll type my email into the comment section here. Can everybody see the chat? I type my email over there, and you guys can call or email me anytime with questions. You know, I know that these, just like the situation we talked through earlier with, you know, the timing of the scholarship, and then also the timing of the purchase of the shirts and stuff. This is by no means black and white. It is very much a situation where we have to think through each scenario, and a lot of times for me, talk through it also. You know, I'll as evidenced on this call, I will hear something and okay, this is my thought, and then I'm like, wait, no, let me think about that some more, and the wheels start turning and things evolve. And unfortunately, that's just how it is with this, because the guidance from Treasury isn't black and white. So then our answers aren't black and white. But my goal, and I know Chief's goal, and all of our goal is to get you guys the funds. We want you to have this money. We want you to be able to use it in the communities. So to that end, I want to work with every single person to get them the full $2,000 grant. And I think we can get there. So if, to the extent that you are having questions about, you know, does this work? Does this not work? Or, you know, I can really only I can only think of $1,000 worth of these. Give me a call. We'll talk through it. We can talk through your scenario specifically and come up with a solution. So
I think that we know that
that
if we can, you know, spend money on food certificates, that should be a no-brainer to fill in for any organization as well. So, and Lindy will send your email address to everyone, but I would encourage everyone to ask me or Lindy or Donnie the questions first, because I know the treasurer is very busy, and we might be able to answer those questions, because she might be getting 10 of the same questions. So we'll, if you don't mind, we will field those for her. Okay. Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
Thanks for having me.
Chief of Staff Todd Enlow is on here as well. And I'll just tell you that before you were on, Deputy Chief Warner discussed food distribution. And so if you would like to talk about other things and safe practices for organizations, that'd be great.
You on the God. And hello, Patsy. So unlike Treasurer, I never, ever change my mind. I'm always consistent. Well, maybe not, maybe some, I don't know. Yes, well, could be. But I think that shows the flexibility and the thought that our Treasurer has put forth to try and help as many citizens as we possibly can, and as many community organizations as we can. And so I appreciate her not just saying a quick yes or a quick no. She's very thoughtful about that, one, to make sure that we're all staying in compliance with the law, but we're also trying to do as much stuff as we possibly can. And that just shows her heart and how much she's trying to figure out ways to extend these dollars. So thank you very much, Treasurer. As far as community organizations, I know because we're at large, we're talking about a myriad of communities that you guys live and work and socialize in, and the virus is affecting each community a little differently. So one thing I'm going to encourage you is to make sure that you stay atop of what the county and state health organizations are providing out there as far as guidance. But I'm going to share generally what I have found, and I believe based on what we see of testing across our citizens in our healthcare system, what we see with our employees, and what we see in conjunction with some of our environmental testing. And we're testing surfaces in the air as well in many of our offices around the 14 counties. So here's what I've learned. If you wear a mask, I haven't found a single employee, if they wear a mask and they're standing right next to somebody that's positive and they're both wearing masks, we have not found an instance where that individual has contracted the virus. So first thing I'm going to suggest, and we're having this debate in the town of Tahlequah, but I'll just share with you the Cherokee value of holding one another's existence sacred. And I've shared with several people that's why I wear my mask, is as much protection for myself as it is for others, including elders and people that I may come around in contact with on a regular basis. So obviously hand sanitization, that general guidance that's put out there, continue to wash your hands and sanitize as frequently as possible. Transmission from surfaces is not likely, but it is possible. And so if I were to touch a door handle and you were to come back and I was positive, transmission rate from that door handle to you is pretty unlikely, but it is possible. So take caution. And through our testing, one of the things that we have found is that a lot of our sanitation efforts, the employees are not getting around food, which includes refrigerators, microwaves, and other appliances. They're tending to stay away from those. And so that's made us bolster our cleaning efforts in and around those areas where food can come in contact with, because naturally they want to stay away from it in case you might ingest it. So take special precaution around that. And then I will say in the last 2 days, we've got confirmation once again that gatherings of really 10 or more people should be limited, or I wouldn't suggest it. First off, we had a group in a community organization that got together, and most of our contact positives that we're seeing are through churches, organizations, reunions, birthday parties, where people get together, they let their guard down, they don't wear a mask, and that's where they're picking up the virus. So just, I know you guys have probably heard this on the national news, but I'm telling you, outside of what everybody is communicating, the information that we've seen across our healthcare system, our employees and our workspaces, it affirms everything that they're saying. And then, if I might, I don't know if anybody's spoken about this, Kevin, if you guys have already said this, it's already been addressed, but while you guys were on this call, we've just announced a new initiative program for citizens that have, and it has no residency requirement, and it has no income guidelines, and it is for elders ages 62 and older are eligible for COVID assistance as well. And so that, and the reason I'm stressing that is because there are no residency requirements on that, nor any income guidelines. And it's up to, or it will be a $400 assistance payment. This is once again one of those things that the treasurer has worked very hard and tried to figure out ways for us to be able to make this happen. And so I will be working on the online application to try and get that out next week. So be looking for us to make the announcement for you to sign up. And that announcement was made while you guys were on this call. So I don't know if anybody else has said it prior to now, but I've given you guys the inside scoop. So it's out on Facebook, and know that it's out there. And so I think that shows the commitment to chief and deputy and administration's efforts to try and get as much resources out to people to help them out as much as we possibly can. Treasurer, deputy, anything else you would like to add to that?
I just say, well, no, Todd, for that announcement and getting that out to everyone, and thank you, Treasurer, for all that you've been doing. Folks, the team that the chief has assembled around him and his administration, I feel is second to none. And that, like I said before, that's all the way from the top down to the folks that take care of the everyday needs. And know that, like Todd mentioned, one thing is flexibility. And that's something that we've always tried to pride ourselves into, because things change, the road changes ahead, and we want to be able to be flexible enough to make those changes. And I've always felt like I was a good listener. I know the chief is, and those things that are important to you, we want to hear them, and we will listen with discernment. So thank you.
I would just say that we want to encourage everyone to take advantage of these opportunities. This goes back to us wanting this money put to the best use for the Cherokee people. And that means that it goes to citizens, it goes to communities, it goes to organizations who have stood beside the Cherokee Nation through this. And and that's why these programs are out there. So to the extent that you guys know anyone who would qualify for this program that Chief of Staff just mentioned, or the education initiatives that were announced, I guess, a couple weeks ago, for people with children, just to help spread the word. The money's there. We have the money. We earmarked it for this, and we want it to go to these folks. So encourage them to send in that application. It's an easy process. Doesn't take much time at all, and I hope to put this money to good use for them.
And then just going back to what I was talking about, one of the things I do want to educate everybody on is if you start to feel ill, don't always dismiss it as, oh, it's just allergies. I always have allergies about this time of year. We've had a lot of people that have turned up with a positive infection of the COVID-19 virus that continued to come to work, dismissed it as it's just normal, and then find out 3 or 4 days later. So here's the range of symptoms that we see it doesn't always occur in this progression, but it usually does occur in this progression. First off is a headache that will not go away. And that's usually anywhere between 3 and 5 days before you start to see any of the other symptoms. And then a sore throat, a cough, and as bad as I hate to say this on Zoom, many people start to see symptoms with diarrhea and upset stomachs, and then those then progress over the next several days. But the first off, 3 to 5 days before you start to see other symptoms, typically is going to be a headache. So if you get a headache and it won't go away, all of these symptoms usually occur before fever's onset. And so, and of course, we have a lot of folks that will not be symptomatic at all, or very mild symptoms, and it doesn't really trip the radar that they're experiencing those symptoms. So just encourage everybody to be mindful of that and think of that, and understand who you've been around, and what's your likelihood of picking that up from somebody. So with that, I will hush and let somebody else speak. And so if I don't get to say it again, what do?
Chief of Staff. Yeah, I text everyone also that we would expect you to get a no-touch digital thermometer as well. Add that to your list of equipment. That's very necessary. And that, we advise not to have a potluck meal with anyone other than your household unit. So that, if you do, if you must have any type of gathering, and we discourage that at this point, that you keep your groups distant and let them bring their own food to feed themselves and not share food among each other. So I will, so we will be following up. Lindy will send out an email to everyone, and we will add the documents. I'll wait for the treasurer to send me that other small form to add to it. We will include the treasurer's contact information, but again, we'd appreciate if you'd contact me first, or Lindy. Also, if you haven't received an email about our virtual CCO conference, that is going to be on August the 31st, and it's going to be all day. We are going to record every session, but we're going to run it just like a regular conference. So we'll be sending out information about that soon, because we also have a mobile app that will allow you to interact with other people. It will allow you to create your own schedule, and it will send you reminders for that schedule as well, and have links to the national treasurers, so that if you would like to purchase some of their wares, because we were going to give them exclusive access to the conference this year and try to promote them and their crafts. So we're going to do that virtually as well. That will be the 31st, which is on a Monday of August. It'll be the day before the Cherokee National Holiday Week begins. So it'll be a great kickoff for that. And we hope everyone can attend. I'm going to now post a link to the pre-registration. So we encourage everybody to pre-register, because we have some pretty cool swag that we're going to mail to you if you participate. So okay. So with that being said, Deputy Chief, you have anything else to add?
I don't think so at this moment, Kevin. I would say, well, Donald, to you, good meeting. And thank you for everyone for being here.
Well, and everyone, stay safe. If you have to go out, wear a mask. And as the Chief of Staff, we hold each other very sacred. So be safe. Take care. Look forward to an email from us.
Yeah,
and share with everyone that we're going to include a link to this video so that they can watch it again or share it with their organization. Okay? Well, everyone.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone.